The first question we have is for Path, which is, what is the future 5-year plan for Skylo?
Thank you so much for the question. Ultimately, at Skylo, we want more than 1 billion users to take advantage of this new mode of connectivity that we've built. To do that, we are innovating on 3 different dimensions. The first is ensuring that a maximum number of devices have access to this capability. So over the next few years, we expect that you will take for granted that the device you buy will have access to Skylo. And that's across verticals, across IoT devices, across automotive, and across consumer. The second vector we're focusing on is enabling new applications. So beyond what we have enabled today, we are focusing on enabling, as Mark mentioned, voice capabilities. We're actually seeing a shift in how people are consuming content on the internet. With the advent of the latest LLMs, I'm no longer browsing the web to get my questions answered in the way I used to. That indicates also a shift in how this new greenfield network gets built to get optimized for AI agent interaction beyond just people interaction. And the third vector is, of course, in complementary network capabilities that satisfy the demand for those use cases. So you should expect to see Skylo in every country. You should expect Skylo to be multi-orbit across GEO and LEO constellations in the coming years. And we're excited to bring these exciting capabilities to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Path. The next question we have is for ICEYE. It says, the ground resolution has been increasing over time, and now you advertise 25 centimeters as the highest fidelity. How far does this go? And what is the balance between the business providing satellites to specific countries versus building your general constellation?
Sure, yeah, great question. Thank you for that. So yes, we have just recently launched our latest generation. It's our 4th generation of radar satellite, which has brought the resolution to 20 centimeters or thereabouts. That is a function of the bandwidth of the radar. So we have just announced 1.2 gigahertz as the bandwidth of that radar, which is what gives you the resolution. Now that bandwidth is a function of what we are allowed to do legally under international rules for the RF spectrum. So that is really as far as it can go in terms of radar bandwidth, giving the resolution. What really then drives any further innovation is what happens on the ground with the processing of the SAR data. So the next set of innovations will come from the ground processing of that data and what we can then do with the subsequent data collected. So 1.2 gigahertz is the limit, around 20 centimeters or thereabouts. Is the limit for that, and any advances then made will simply come from the ground processing. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And another one here for ICEYE. Can you talk a little bit about the non-government business and how that's developing?
Yes, absolutely. So we've talked, yes, a lot here about defense and security and so on. That is one element, and that's often focused on the satellite sales themselves, the data sales themselves, but also ICEYE has a third revenue stream, which is from taking the data from our own satellites in orbit, the constellation we have put up there, and using that to bring forward we call it solutions, lots of insights into what's going on the surface of the planet. In particular, we focused on flooding as a starting point. There are literally hundreds of applications you could focus on, but we chose flooding and natural catastrophes as a place to start. And that is of particular relevance at the moment for a lot of insurance companies, for example, in the civil space, but also for the emergency services. So that as one additional non-governmental, if you like, revenue stream is a place we've started, and we've seen incredible interest and strong growth. Our intent is to now expand on that product set into other sectors.
Thank you. The next one here is for ALL.SPACE. I understand ALL.SPACE is currently fulfilling its existing order book. What are the next steps in your commercial evolution?
Yeah, great question. We have 3 iterations of the product underway. Generation 1 is now in full production and is being sold. And the capability, therefore, will expand into further increased bandwidth for the terminal. So we're moving to a 500 megahertz instantaneous bandwidth. And then the next generation that will be coming after that is the one that will have multiple frequencies. So the current iteration has got Ka band frequency, but the 2027 version will have Ku and Ka into a small terminal that can fit on any moving vehicle. So we have a technology path that's going to lead us and keep us ahead of the market space for how we develop and therefore connect into all of the satellites in space. We currently are focused on the defence market, and the US government has already got us signed up for contracts to deliver the capability because they urgently want to have that capability for their warfighting delivery. And we're currently focused on making sure we can deliver the scale that they require in that, both for the US Army and the US Navy, which I have to say was slightly larger than we were expecting at this stage in the development, which gives us a great opportunity to expand faster than we were expecting to.
Thank you. This one here is a follow-up question from your question earlier, your answer earlier, Parth, about the 5-year plan. What risks do you anticipate going forward with this plan?
The most important thing is continuing to ensure that there's interoperability between systems, that there is continued standardization, and there is continued scale through our not just carrier partnerships, but also our OEM and device ecosystem partnerships. So we've got to move at the pace of the rest of the industry, and we're excited to continue to grow and scale to meet the demand that's there. So as I mentioned before, it really takes a village to bring a solution like this to market. And integrating Skylo's tech stack across the ecosystem has taken years to develop. And we're excited to finally now have this be available across all different kinds of use cases and applications. We'll continue to do more of that as we go along.
Thank you. And the final question here is to all three of you. And it says, how capital hungry are your businesses? And what might be required in terms of external financing to fund your growth?
Happy to kick that off. We have chosen a capital light approach to solving this problem because we didn't want to reinvent the wheel and cause, for instance, a new silicon to be spun up for connecting your cellular device over satellite, nor did we want to launch a new set of satellites to solve for this use case. In fact, there's already satellites up there that can satisfy these initial use cases. And so we chose to leverage what's already out there. And what we chose to focus on was building the software stack, and we do have a hardware component in that, the eNode B or the radio access network, but it allows us to essentially move at the pace of software as opposed to hardware.
Thanks, Parth. What can I say about ICEYE? The capital requirements for launching satellites have come down and down and down over the years, not least of which because of SpaceX and their low-cost launch platforms. So that's been really useful, providing much, much lower cost access to space. Public domain information for ICEYE is that over the various financing rounds we've done over the last few years, we've got to just over 300 million in total investment to date. A lot of support from Seraphim, and thank you for that. And that's enabled ICEYE to go from a small number of people in the sort of 30, 40 people about 5 or 6 years ago when I joined, up to just over 700 people now. And last year, revenue gone from 0 5 years ago to just over 100 million. So I think that really shows the trajectory the company's had and the trajectory we're still on. So that, I hope, should give you an understanding of the sort of orders of magnitude we're talking about.
This is a particularly great question for us at the moment in time. If somebody had asked me this question 6 months ago, where we were just getting from TRL 8 to TRL 9 with the product, and what the plan was to sell and introduce the product that was moving from a core technology that was capable into a real product that would be usable, we would have had a gradual pickup in the marketplace on a normal technology S-curve that people would imagine. But because we've now proven all of the people who said it isn't possible to physically do this in physics, and now we know it's working, put it in the hands of, in particular, the US DoD. They have tested it and proven it works. The demand that they are asking for is larger than we had previously expected, and the timescale that they wanted for that is now sooner because they've now seen it operational, used it in the field, and now want this to speed up and put it in the hands of all of their units. And therefore our capital requirements are going to increase, and we're going out for another series of fundraising so that we can meet that demand and the pace of the requirement. So for us, the capital requirement has increased over the last 6 months, sheerly because of the fact that now everybody knows it's real, they want it and they want it faster.